I believe back in January of 2009, we were finishing up an evening meal downstairs that we feed to the homeless or anybody that comes by in the community that are hungry. We serve a dinner and a lunch, and we found that at the end of the dinner, there would seem to be a couple of men that were hanging around trying to find chores to do, and it was like they didn't want to leave, and it was kind of cold out for that time of year. I mean, you know, sometimes January is a little bit warmer and sometimes it's a little bit colder. But my husband asked them, said, where are you all staying for the night? And they said, well, last night we stayed next to a car wash covered up with cardboard and old carpet remnants that they had found in a dumpster. And he'd come over to me and he said, I didn't discuss this with you, but I've got to do something. I've got to do something. These men stayed out in the cold last night. He said, so I told them to bed down in the fellowship hall. And he said, we've got to help them. He said, they'll die out there. And it was amazing that it just kind of started from there. People that was out on the street homeless that had no place to go were finding out that, hey, there was a place here to come and eat, and a place to get out of the elements of the weather. And they began to come, and before long, we were actually having to bring people upstairs in the sanctuary to place them because the weather was so bad. And it started from there, and it's grown, and it's just amazing how God will work. One lady came in with her 3 children, and she told the pastor, she said, if it had not been for you, said, me and my children especially, would not have had a hot meal today. And that being said, with tears in her eyes, you know that you're doing the work of God, you're doing the work for the needy as God called us to do. I'm starting to see some changes in their lives. They're getting goals back in their mind. They're looking for jobs. They're getting excited, and they're desiring more than their current situation. So I know that this shelter and the food outreach is so much more than what we could actually envision it to be. We've seen some of them come back and say they found jobs, found placement to stay. One fellow has come back and he's helped out at the desk as the night watchman. And I mean, you can see God's hand changing their lives slowly but surely. Husband's always said that this church is like the bumblebee. Scientists say that the bumblebee should not be able to fly, but it does. We don't receive any funding. We don't receive any assistance. What does happen is everything that we get goes into these ministries. Since he's been pastor here, he's not taken a paycheck. Everything here is volunteer only, because we believe that what God's got moving here, all the monies need to be funneled toward that and getting it going, getting it out there. You know, our electric bill, it'll go sky high, but yet we try to do what we can do to make it maintainable to where it's affordable. God's never left us. He's never seen us forsaken. He's always been there, and it's amazing that he's met our bills. But like I said, this is all volunteer. Nobody receives a paycheck, and God's just been good.
Since we opened, we have fed over 200,000 hot meals across our counter, and that's probably in the high 200s now. That was the last count about 3 years ago. So we're probably if we're not over 300, we're probably pushing 300,000 hot meals now. We've sheltered over 14,000 sheltered nights now to this current time, and we have given away over 500,000 pounds of food out the door to help those in need. And she's right. You say everything we got funnels back towards keeping people alive. You know, we ain't capable of helping with electric and other utilities and stuff like that, but we make sure you got a warm place to sleep. We make sure you got food on your table. We feed on average probably 65, 70 meals for lunch, and again 65, 70, 80. Usually it's more for dinner because the children are home from school, so the numbers go up. So we feed a lot of children in addition to the adults, but we feed anywhere between probably 40 and 70 meals for lunch, and anywhere between probably 50 and 80 meals for dinner. So it fluctuates with the time of month and the time of season.
Somewhere in their life, something has triggered. It's been triggered to the point that it's altered their perception of how life has to be. We've dealt with people that are homeless because their wife and child was killed in a car wreck, and they just couldn't deal with the heartache and deal with the stress and the depression. And so it's like they couldn't perform on the job, and so they ended up losing their house. And you know, statistics say that everybody in America is one paycheck away from being homeless. One paycheck. And these people have drug addictions, yes. They have alcohol addictions, yes. Some of them can be right down mean, but what the Bible says, what you do to the least of these, you've also done unto him. A I find it amazing that when you do pull up to a stop sign or a stoplight and you see somebody flying a sign, what goes through somebody's mind? Well, if I give them money, they're going to go drink. And, you know, it's more than that. You have to get to the issue as to why they're out there. What got them to that point? And I never will forget one really cold night. Our numbers were really high. It was snowing outside, and I think they was just calling it was frigid temperatures, just as bad could be for this time of year. And our sanctuary was full. We had cots on both walls, and it was just the right time to sit down with a couple of guys and try to figure out, you know, what brought you here to this place in your life? Why are you here? And they knew we wasn't being disrespectful, but some of them would say, well, I came home from work. My wife had put the stuff out on the steps and she left, and so just didn't feel like life was worth staying in an empty house. Or one would say their wife and their child got killed, they were murdered. You know, these people do have a story, and a lot of times we end up hearing the story and trying to minister. They got to know that there's a way out. There's something better than what they are experiencing. And a lot of people find it amazing when I tell them some of the stories that happen here. They'll just shake their head, wow, didn't know that, and it's a great work. Yeah, it's a great work, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. And the one thing that people don't want to hear about, it takes money.
Yep.
Our electric bill alone, just in the good months of summer, will run between $1,200 and $1,600. And it's amazing that it would cost that much, but it's a big building. We do make sure that we keep food on hand downstairs in the freezers, and that will run up your electric bill. But our worst times are coming because winter months are coming. That's our most needy time of year when it's the coldest. You know, they'll come in with wet feet, so we have to try to find somebody that will bring some socks for us to give to them. They'll need dry underclothes, undergarments, and t-shirts. And just the other day, they brought it out in the news that the Farmer's Almanac has predicted a really frigid winter. And that being placed in my mind, what I read, I began to think about, what if we had to turn somebody away? God forbid, I don't want to have to turn anybody away and read about it or find about it the next day that they found them dead somewhere. Because if they can't find a place to stay, they end up breaking the law and they go into these houses just looking for a place out of the element. And it's not a safe place, but at least here we can give them a safe place. Our ultimate goal is to get the shelter out from underneath the church and into another building.
You can send it in. I mean, I'm not above handing you the bill and say, here's a bill to pay. If you're afraid to give money, I'll give you the bill. But I mean, everything everybody gives, I mean, we have zero overhead other than the lights. That's the only overhead we got. I mean, there is no salaries here, and I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, we don't put it in our pocket. We don't build a mansion with it. We help people with it.
You know what? They're no different than you and I. They're just stuck in a place and need some help and a way out. And that's what we're needing help with, a way out.
Help us.
Help them.